My parents gave me up for adoption as a child because I was a boy. Now, 20 years later, they've reached out asking for money to pay for my sister's education. I, 20M, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am. I've known I was adopted since I was old enough to understand what that meant. My adoptive parents, who I'll call mom and dad because that's who they are to me, have always been open about it. They told me that my birth parents weren't in a position to raise a child when I was born, and that giving me up for adoption was the best decision for everyone involved. I accepted this and never really felt the need to seek out my birth parents. I had a great childhood, loving parents, and a happy life. Why rock the boat, right? Growing up, I was always curious about my birth parents, but not in a way that consumed me. I'd sometimes wonder if I got my love for music from them, or if my terrible eyesight was a genetic gift they'd bestowed upon me. But these were fleeting thoughts, quickly replaced by the day-to-day joys and struggles of growing up. My parents, my real parents, the ones who raised me, were always supportive. They'd answer my questions as best they could and always reassured me that if I ever wanted to seek out my birth parents, they'd support me. But I never felt that urge. My family was complete as it was. Mom, with her terrible jokes and amazing cooking. Dad, with his quiet wisdom and penchant for DIY projects that always seemed to go hilariously wrong. And me, a perfect blend of their nurture if not their nature. We were happy, and I never felt like I was missing anything. That all changed about a month ago when I got a message on Facebook from a woman claiming to be my birth mother. At first, I thought it was a scam or something, but she knew details about my adoption that weren't public knowledge. After some back and forth and verification through the adoption agency, I confirmed that she was indeed my birth mother. She said she and my birth father had been thinking about me a lot lately and wanted to reconnect. They asked if I'd be willing to meet up for coffee. I was curious, so I agreed. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. This was a huge step, and I wasn't sure how it would affect me emotionally. I told my parents about the message and the proposed meeting. They were supportive but cautious. Mom hugged me tightly and said, "Just remember, sweetheart, no matter what happens, you'll always be our son." Dad, in his typical fashion, tried to lighten the mood with a joke, "Just don't let them convince you that their dad jokes are better than mine." It didn't quite land, but I appreciated the effort. The day of the meeting arrived, and I felt like I was going to throw up. I must have changed my outfit 5 times before settling on a simple blue button-down and jeans. As I drove to the cafe, my mind was racing. What would they look like? Would I see myself in their features? What if they didn't like me? What if I didn't like them? The meeting was awkward, to say the least. My birth parents seemed nervous, and there was this tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. We made small talk for a while, mostly about my life and what I'd been up to. They told me a bit about themselves, too. Apparently, they got married a few years after giving me up and now have 2 daughters, my biological sisters, aged 17 and 15. My birth mother, Sarah, works as a high school English teacher. She has the same dark hair as me, and I could see where I got my nose from. My birth father, Tom, is an accountant. He's tall and lanky, just like me, and we have the same green eyes. It was surreal, seeing these physical traits I'd always wondered about reflected back at me. They asked about my life, and I found myself sharing more than I'd planned. I told them about my childhood, about how mom and dad had supported my love for music, even when I went through that phase where I thought I was going to be the next big rock star. I talked about my current studies in computer science, my part-time job at a local tech startup, and my dreams for the future. As I spoke, I could see a mix of emotions play across their faces. Pride, regret, longing, it was all there. Sarah kept reaching out as if to touch my hand, then pulling back at the last second. Tom's eyes were suspiciously shiny, though he tried to hide it by frequently adjusting his glasses. As the conversation went on, I started to get the feeling that there was more to this meeting than just reconnecting. Sure enough, towards the end, they dropped the bomb. "We're so proud of the man you've become," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "And we were hoping. Well, we were wondering if you might be willing to help us out with something." I raised an eyebrow, already feeling a knot forming in my stomach. "What kind of help?" Tom cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Your sister, your older sister, that is, she's about to start college. We've been saving up, but with the economy the way it is, well, we're a bit short. We were hoping you might be able to contribute to her education fund." I sat there, stunned. These people, who I'd met for the first time in my life less than an hour ago, were asking me for money. For a sister I didn't even know existed until today? I don't know what to say, I stammered. This is a lot to take in. We know it's a big ask, Sarah said quickly, reaching out and actually taking my hand this time. Her touch felt foreign, uncomfortable. But family helps family, right? And you're doing so well for yourself. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted reality show. The cafe around us seemed to fade away, and all I could focus on was the expectant looks on their faces. They genuinely seemed to believe that this was a reasonable request. I'm sorry, but I need some time to process this, I finally managed to say, gently pulling my hand away from Sarah's. I'll think about it and get back to you. They seemed disappointed but nodded in understanding. We exchanged contact information, and I left the cafe feeling like I'd just been hit by a truck. The drive home was a blur. I found myself parked in my driveway, not entirely sure how I'd gotten there. I sat in my car for a long time, trying to make sense of what had just happened. When I finally went inside, Mom took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "Oh, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Come on, let's sit down and you can tell us all about it." So I did. I told them everything, about the meeting, about my biological sisters, and about the request for money. As I spoke, I could see the concern on their faces growing. "I just don't understand," I said, running my hands through my hair in frustration. "Why now? Why reach out after all these years just to ask for money?" Dad's face was stormy. "That's not right," he said, his voice low and angry. "They gave up their right to ask anything of you when they gave you up." Mom was more measured in her response. "Sweetheart, this is a lot to process. You don't owe them anything, you know that, right? Take some time to think about how you feel before you make any decisions." Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I decided to do some digging, and what I found out made my blood boil. It turns out, my birth parents had specifically wanted a girl. When I was born and they found out I was a boy, they decided to give me up for adoption. They tried again, and 2 years later, they had my older sister. Then they had another girl a couple of years after that. Finding this out, it broke something in me. All my life, I believed that my birth parents gave me up because they couldn't take care of me. But the truth was, they just didn't want me because I was a boy. I was furious. I felt used, discarded, and now they had the audacity to ask me for money? For the child they kept because she was the gender they wanted? In a fit of anger, I sent them a scathing message. I told them I knew the truth about why they gave me up. I accused them of only reaching out because they wanted something from me. I told them in no uncertain terms that I would not be giving them a single cent for my sister's education or for anything else. I said that they made their choice 20 years ago when they decided I wasn't the child they wanted, and now they had to live with the consequences of that choice. As soon as I hit send, I felt a mix of relief and regret. Had I gone too far? Should I have been more understanding? They sent back a long, tearful message about how sorry they were, how they were young and stupid, and how they've regretted their decision every day since. They begged me to reconsider, saying that they wanted to make things right and be a family. I haven't responded. Part of me wants to tell them exactly where they can shove their apology, but another part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. They seem genuinely remorseful, and it's not my sister's fault that our parents made the choices they did. So, Reddit, here I am. Am I the asshole for refusing to help pay for my sister's education? Should I give them another chance? Or should I just cut all contact and go back to my life as it was before they showed up? Edit 1. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for your responses and support. I'm trying to read through all the comments, but there are so many. I'll try to address some of the most common questions/comments. 1. Yes, my adoptive parents know about this situation. They're furious on my behalf and have been incredibly supportive. They've told me that whatever I decide, they'll back me up 100%. 2. No, I don't know for certain that my birth parents are telling the truth about their financial situation. Given everything else, I'm inclined to be skeptical. 3. To those asking about my own education, I'm currently in college on a combination of scholarships and student loans. My adoptive parents have helped where they can, but I'm largely financing my education myself. 4. Several people have suggested that I might have half-siblings I don't know about. It's possible, I suppose, but I have no way of knowing for sure. 5. For those wondering about legal implications, I've spoken with a lawyer friend of the family. He says that in our state, there's no legal obligation for me to provide any financial support to my birth family. 6. A lot of you have suggested therapy, and you're right. I've reached out to my university's counseling services and have an appointment next week. Edit 2. Things have taken an unexpected turn. Last night, I received a message from someone claiming to be my older sister. Here's what it said. Hey, I know you don't know me, and this is probably really weird, but I'm your sister. I overheard our parents talking about meeting you and asking for money for my college fund. I want you to know that I had no idea about this, and I'm horrified that they did this. I'm so sorry. I've known about you for a few years now, but our parents always told us that your adoptive parents didn't want us to have contact with you. I guess that was a lie too. I don't expect anything from you, and I completely understand if you want nothing to do with any of us. I just wanted you to know that I think what our parents did was wrong, both 20 years ago and now. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. But no pressure at all. I hope you're doing okay. I'm still processing this new development. Part of me wants to respond to her, but another part is worried this might be some kind of manipulation tactic from my birth parents. I'm not sure what to do. I showed the message to my parents, and they're as conflicted as I am. Mom thinks it might be genuine and that my sister might be feeling as blindsided by all this as I am. Dad is more skeptical, worried that it might be my birth parents trying a different angle. I've been tossing and turning all night, trying to decide what to do. On one hand, I'm curious about my sisters. They're innocent in all this, and it might be nice to have a relationship with them. On the other hand, I'm worried about opening myself up to more hurt. What if they're just like our birth parents? I've decided to take a few days to think about it before I respond. In the meantime, I'm throwing myself into my studies and my part-time job, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in the midst of all this chaos. Edit 3. After much consideration and encouragement from my adoptive parents, I decided to respond to my sister's message. We've been talking for the past few days, and it's been enlightening, to say the least. Her name is Emily, and she's about to graduate high school. From our conversations, she seems like a genuinely kind person. She's been incredibly understanding about my hesitation and has answered all my questions honestly, even when the answers weren't flattering to our birth parents. She confirmed that our birth parents' financial situation isn't as dire as they made it out to be. They're not wealthy by any means, but they're not on the brink of financial ruin either. Apparently, they've been talking about reaching out to me for years, but only worked up the courage, her words, to do so when they realized how expensive college would be. Emily is mortified by the whole situation. She's been accepted to several good schools but is now considering community college to save money. She made it very clear that she doesn't expect anything from me and actually encouraged me to maintain my boundaries with our birth parents. We've talked a lot about our childhoods, our parents, both birth and adoptive, and our feelings about this whole mess. It's been nice, in a way, to have someone who understands the complicated emotions I'm dealing with. Emily told me about our younger sister, Sophia, who's 15. Apparently, Sophia doesn't know about me yet. Emily thinks our parents are waiting until she's older to tell her, but she disagrees with this decision. It's creating some tension in their household. As for my birth parents, I sent them a final message yesterday. I told them that while I appreciate their apology, I'm not in a place where I can forgive them or have a relationship with them. I explained that their actions, both in giving me up and in reaching out only when they wanted something from me, have caused me a lot of pain. I asked them to respect my wishes and not contact me again. They responded with another long, emotional message, but I haven't read it yet. I'm not sure if I will. So, where does this leave things? Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm still processing everything that's happened over the past few weeks. I'm angry and hurt, but I'm also grateful for my adoptive parents and the life they've given me. I'm cautiously optimistic about potentially having a relationship with my sisters in the future, but I'm going to take things very slowly. As for paying for my sister's education? That's still a firm no. But I've decided to set up a small scholarship fund at my university for adopted students. It's not much, but it feels like a positive way to channel all these complicated emotions into something good. Thank you all for your advice, support, and for letting me vent. This community has been incredibly helpful during one of the most confusing times of my life. I may not have the family I was born into, but I've realized that family is about so much more than biology. It's about love, support, and being there for each other, something my adoptive parents have shown me every day of my life. Edit 4. It's been a few months since my last update, and a lot has happened. I thought you all deserved to know how things have progressed. First, the situation with my birth parents. Despite my request for no contact, they continued to reach out sporadically. At first, it was just the occasional message, asking how I was doing or if I'd reconsidered my position. But as time went on, the messages became more frequent and more demanding. They started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "Don't you want to know your real family? And we've missed out on so much of your life already, don't push us away now." It all came to a head when they showed up unannounced at my apartment. I have no idea how they got my address, but suddenly, there they were, standing on my doorstep with pleading looks on their faces. I was shocked and, frankly, scared. I refused to let them in and told them to leave, but they wouldn't budge. They kept insisting that we needed to talk, that they could explain everything if I'd just give them a chance. I ended up calling the police. Watching them being escorted away was one of the most. Final edit: it's been about 6 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. I thought you all deserved one final update. After the incident where my birth parents showed up at my apartment, I decided to take legal action. I now have a restraining order against them. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately necessary for my mental health and well-being. On a more positive note, my relationship with my sisters has grown. We've met in person several times and talk regularly. They're both amazing young women, and I'm grateful to have them in my life. Emily ended up accepting a scholarship to a state university and is thriving there. Sophia, now knowing about me, has been eager to build a relationship. The scholarship fund I mentioned is now officially established. It's small, but it's already helped 2 students this year. Working on this has been incredibly healing for me. As for me, I'm doing better. Therapy has been a huge help in processing everything. I've realized that while the circumstances of my birth and adoption will always be a part of my story, they don't define me. I'm fortunate to have a loving family, both my adoptive parents and my found family of friends, who support me unconditionally. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your kindness and wisdom helped me through one of the most difficult periods of my life. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that family isn't about blood, it's about love, respect, and being there for each other.